The increasing reliance on compounded versions of weight loss medications like semaglutide and tirzepatide, particularly through online pharmacies, has raised serious concerns regarding the safety, accessibility, and regulation of these drugs. As the Food and Drug Administration, FDA, ramps up efforts to ban compounded versions of these medications, the situation could become a nightmare for patients who have turned to these alternatives as a lifeline. For many, the journey to obtaining effective weight loss medication has been fraught with obstacles. High costs, insurance denials, and the sheer unavailability of these drugs in pharmacies have driven countless individuals to seek out compounded options online. While these alternatives may be cheaper and more accessible, they are also unregulated and could pose serious risks to users. For instance, compounded medications often lack the oversight and rigorous testing that traditional, FDA-approved drugs undergo, raising the specter of dangerous side effects or overdoses. Patients like Lauren McBride and Michelle Pierce, who have struggled with conditions like insulin resistance and PCOS, have found some relief through compounded semaglutide and tirzepatide, with McBride losing 45 pounds and Pierce shedding 25 pounds. These success stories are not uncommon. However, they are tinged with an undercurrent of desperation. McBride, after struggling with ineffective prescription medications, turned to an online health provider, Machi Health, where she was prescribed compounded drugs. While these medications worked for her, McBride's experience highlights a larger issue. The current healthcare system, weighed down by insurance roadblocks, has failed to provide patients with effective solutions. The compounded drugs became her only viable option when traditional avenues failed her. Pierce's story is similarly fraught with frustration. After enduring months of insurance rejections, she turned to an online pharmacy, Olympia Pharmaceuticals, where she was able to obtain compounded semaglutide for a fraction of the price. She too experienced improvements in her weight and overall health, but at what cost? Without the proper regulatory oversight, these medications could easily be tainted or ineffective. Still, for patients like Pierce, the compounded drugs offered a glimmer of hope in an otherwise opaque and sluggish healthcare system. While these compounded medications may provide tangible benefits, the looming FDA ban serves as a stark reminder of the dangers associated with unregulated drugs. The FDA's intervention, while perhaps necessary to ensure patient safety, also threatens to pull the rug out from under individuals who have no other options. The drug shortages that plague the GLP-1 agonists, compounded by high costs and insurance limitations, left patients with no choice but to seek alternatives online. For those like author Ken Foster, who struggled to find GLP-1 drugs due to shortages, these compounded medications provided the only solution. Foster, who has experienced significant health improvements, worries that an FDA ban could disrupt his progress and force him back to square one. The FDA's crackdown is likely motivated by legitimate concerns about patient safety. The absence of standardization in compounded drugs means that patients may be unknowingly exposed to subpar products that could have dangerous consequences. Yet, it also exposes the deeper flaws within the healthcare system, where access to effective treatment is often restricted by high costs, insurance companies, and drug shortages. For many patients, compounded medications have been a desperate attempt to bypass these barriers. The looming ban raises the question, why are patients left with no choice but to turn to potentially risky online pharmacies to access the medications they need? This situation underscores a critical issue within healthcare today, the growing divide between what patients need and what they can actually access. The rise of online compounded medications speaks volumes about the brokenness of the current system. Patients who should have access to life-changing treatments are instead forced to navigate a convoluted and often unsafe web of online providers. The FDA's actions, while intended to protect the public, may ultimately harm those who are already at a disadvantage in the healthcare system. With GLP-1 agonists in high demand and traditional pharmacies struggling to meet the needs of patients, the compounded drug market has become a necessary, albeit imperfect, solution. If the FDA succeeds in its crackdown, many individuals could be left without any viable alternatives. The situation highlights the stark reality of modern healthcare. Too many people are being pushed into the arms of unregulated, potentially dangerous online providers simply because the conventional system has failed them. The consequences of this shift could be far-reaching, leaving countless patients without access to the medication they so desperately need and pushing them further into a system that prioritizes bureaucracy and regulation over patient well-being.